Hi, JamesAnimalHarrison. I'm here with Thursday Thoughts. And today we're going to talk about a drummer who's right over my shoulder here. This is John Bonham. And the video I posted on Wednesday was the first part of a two-lesson video that I may extend to the 3 and 4 for the other parts of the song about Fool in the Rain, which is one of my favorite beats from John Bonham. And that's why I decided to talk about him today. But the truth is, I was kind of late to the party with John Bonham and Led Zeppelin. When I was a kid, all the records that I had were 45s that came off of my grandmother's jukebox at this restaurant that she owned. And I had a little turntable, and I'd stack them up and play along with them and, try the different tunes and whatnot. And, of course, there were never 45s of Led Zeppelin on there. And at the time, most radio stations, it was really more AM related back then. And it wasn't until I got older and when I was like 14 or 15 that I started getting some of that exposure to Led Zeppelin because of, first off, being in my first rock band, Aldebaran, we actually learned a few tunes. But also being around with some older people, they kind of started giving me that exposure. And of course, I had heard Whole Lot of Love and Stairway to Heaven and stuff like that. And that was great. But I would hear some other things and, some of the tunes would go on and on and on forever. And I didn't really care for a lot of that at the time. And but eventually, as my years got more mature, I started listening to John Bonham more than listening to Led Zeppelin as a whole, or even like the Jimmy Page extended guitar solos and whatnot, and really started to appreciate more of some of the grooves that he was doing and the quasi reggae-ish. I have always said Dire Maker. I've heard it's Jamaica, but those kind of tunes, and then I didn't realize that when I heard Good Times, Bad Times, and some of those other tunes, that he didn't have a double bass. And then I started really getting on. And then, honestly, when he would do his solos, and I'll be guilty and say that, if he did a 15-minute solo, I might not have been in all 15 minutes, but I really dug some of the snare drum stuff that he was doing because it had that little swing to it. And I had grown up listening to Buddy Rich and stuff like that, so I kind of always liked that section of it. And, like the end of Rock and Roll just threw me for a loop. He had this, but I just couldn't figure a lot of that out initially. And some of it's still tricky. Black Dog, I think, is one of the coolest, trickiest songs ever. But I think Kashmir is a great tune, but eventually I just got into the point where I started to really appreciate the drumming as I became more mature. A lot of people think he's the greatest rock drummer in the world. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know that once I was able to dive in there enough and really listen to what it is that he was doing and how he was doing it, I really began to appreciate his playing more. And it has what I call that British lilt. Ringo had it, and Bill Bruford definitely has it. Some of the drummers that come from England, when they play Ian Pace, it's not perfectly straight. There's like a little bit of a swing in everything they do, and John Bonham kind of had that. So I was late to the party, but once I understood it, I was like, wow, there's some really happening stuff going on here. And of course, now everybody's on the Bonzo train and whatnot. And but it took me a while. I'm not going to lie. It did take me a while. But again, now that I'm on there, there's so many things that are just really hip, really cool. The fast diddles on the bass drum on Good Times, Bad Times. And again, like Whole Lot of Love has the cool stuff. And, when I had to first learn that for a band, I had a bad cassette recording from a radio station. So, or I might have been off somebody's album, I don't know, but it was very difficult to pick out all of that stuff because the sound quality just wasn't that good. Now, of course, I have them all on disc and whatnot, and you know, it's pretty easy to hear a lot of it. But you know, when I was young, it was very difficult to pick some of that stuff out. So, you know, I have a lot of favorite tunes, and some of the other tunes I like just because I just like how simplistic they are, but powerful. Other ones are definitely difficult, you know, but it's just difficult for me to explain it, other than the fact that John Bonham, to me, was a lot like Elvin Jones. It took me a long time. I didn't like Elvin Jones at first. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't grasp it. I couldn't clap my way through trading fours without getting lost and everything. It took me a long time to understand the elasticity in his feel and the way he did things. It wasn't so regimented. And John Bonham has a little bit of that. And it took me, you know, he's got a balance. Of course, there's some stuff that's just dead solid right on, and other things that kind of have a little bit of a weird vibe and stuff to him. So, but once I was on board, I was definitely on board. So, I have every Zeppelin album. I have, again, this picture. I have a couple of sketches that are framed that are not hanging up right now that I got out of the back of Modern Drummer magazine years and years ago in the early 80s. One's Neil Peart and one is John Bonham. And so those are both drummers that ended up being influences that initially it took me a little bit of a while to catch on. And again, it was just because I just didn't have the access until I was a little bit older, and then hanging around people that did have access or did own the albums or everything, it created a new outlet for me. And then I was all for it. So that's the best way I can describe it. I'm all about it. I think Zeppelin's great. I think I just wasn't ready for a lot of it when I was young, and now I am. So definitely on my influences wall. So John Bonham, can't go wrong. Thanks.